Well, thank you for being here today, and thank you for your service already at the VA, and we appreciate and look forward to the years, hopefully years, and that's plural, that we'll have together and continue on that striving to make the VA even better. And I appreciate your restating your commitment to Secretary Wilkie, who I believe has done an excellent job in kind of settling down the temperature at the VA to a stable on 98.6 rather than what it got to 102 every now and then. We were putting out too many fires, and I appreciate that very much. How much time have you spent, or are you spending, on the question of suicide?
So I'll tell you, sir, personally, every day we touch it in some way. It's the #1 clinical priority for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Mr. Wilkie beats that drum every day. A $222 million budget has been allocated for 2020 regarding suicide prevention. And I'll share with you what I've learned and what my involvement is. What I've learned is we have robust programs at all areas involving suicide prevention. At the further extreme of the chain, we have a veteran crisis line that handles 1,700 calls a day, 80 of which require emergency intervention to veterans in crisis. We have and we've had 240 saves, if I could call them that, on VA properties over the last 18 months, veterans that were in the process of committing suicide. That is at the extreme end of suicide prevention. What we're trying to do, and I'm sure you would agree, is back up the chain of events so that we don't have to have saves, that we don't have to have 80 emergency interventions every day. And so moving it back up the chain, we have, of course, the President's executive order, which directs Mr. Wilkie to put together a task force and a framework for rallying the resources of the federal government, local communities, academia, private industry. And we're very excited about that as hopefully a needle mover. But within the VA, that $220 million is well spent. We have 400 suicide prevention coordinators throughout the country, amazing employees who do a number of things. We have a program in the VA called Reach Vet. It's an analytical program that takes several data points regarding the data that we have on veterans and identifies those veterans that are at risk. And those coordinators, those 400, reach out to those veterans and intervene and try to get them treatment and care. And that's within the veterans that we can actually reach. The veteran coordinators also have an extensive outreach program. Last year they reached 2 million people. And I say people because not all of them are veterans. In fact, the majority of them are not veterans, because we want to put the word out about the treatment and care that the VA can provide and that communities can provide to veterans that are in distress. So those community coordinators talk to families, they talk to community leaders, and try to rally them to get the support they need, whether it's in the VA or elsewhere. We've looked at it as a public health approach instead of looking at it through some other paradigm. And I think that's the proper way to be looking at suicide prevention across the United States as well within the veteran community. We've also launched the Be There campaign, and that's a communication campaign really to the general public, just to be there for each other, be there for veterans. A lot of factors go into committing suicide, as I'm sure you're well aware, but one that's probably not in dispute is that loneliness, lack of connection, and hopelessness, those are major contributors in general to the psyche. But we've also found with our specific community veterans that homelessness, legal troubles, and things along that line contribute as well. And so all those programs working together, we're hoping are going to reduce this horrible tragedy across the United States. 20 veterans a day are taking their lives, and 14 of which are not within our system. And so we're taking extensive efforts. I try to touch each and every one of these initiatives in some degree, and I assure you we talk about it every day, sir.
Well, the thoroughness alone of your answer shows the commitment that you're making to yourself, and I appreciate that very much, because it's a work in progress and always will be. But as long as we're moving in the right direction and we're preventing suicides from happening and we're intervening early enough to make that happen, then we're doing our job, or at least doing a better job of it. You mentioned the Mission Act. That is a critical act. How much have you had to say or do in the creation of the new access standards for the Mission Act?
The specific access standards or Mission Act at large, sir?
Both.
Well, the Mission Act access standards, there was a lot of deliberation. Mr. Wilkie, being the great leader that he is, he wanted input from all different sort of corners and views on the access standards. And you're aware of the ones we settled on with 30 minutes and 60 minutes and then the wait times. So I was deeply involved in that and supportive of what the decision that was made. I thought it was a reasonable access standard to expand the aperture just a little bit further. But to the larger question about Mission Act, we have a big railroad to run. There's a lot of operations going on, but I can tell you the drumbeat for Mission Act is every day, and that one's loud, particularly as we sprint toward the June 6th implementation date for a good portion of the Mission Act.
Yeah, that's going to be a critical time. That first 12 months from that date on are going to be a critical time to judge the progress we've made and ultimately get to the point where the Mission Act is carrying out its mission to the veterans of the United States of America. Mr. Moran.